This is the Gen Y Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast, where we guide millennials to become the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eric Huey, and multiple times a month, we bring you interviews from high-performing millennials who are challenging perceptions and changing expectations of our generation. Our mission is to help you overcome fear, take action, and go confidently in the direction of your dreams. It's time to start preparing now, mainly because 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day, which will create a vacuum of career opportunities that you've been waiting for. Will you be ready? Tom, welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric.
If you could, just start off by telling viewers who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Tom Burden. I'm the inventor of the Grypmat. I just pulled up a quick picture. It's kind of hard to see, but it's a flexible tool tray. It gives mechanics a safe place to set their tools. So as you saw there, that was it gripping on the exterior of an aircraft, and it gives the mechanic a place to set their tools where normally they're running up and down the ladder to set anything down or get something else. So I was an F-16 mechanic in the Air Force, and I was tired of my tools sliding off the aircraft. And started in aviation, started growing to the automotive industry. So It acts as like a visual management, so you can easily see your tools. And mechanics are typically like scattering their tools all over the engine, and it's like getting lost and dropping down. And for the auto mechanics out there, you're probably losing your 10 millimeter sockets. So that's where we really play.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the overview, and thanks for your service, Air Force. That's we appreciate your service.
Yeah, thanks for your support.
Yeah, definitely. So you got a lot going on. You're CEO of this company, founder of an inventor. Forbes 30 under 30. I saw at one point. Air Force member. What keeps you motivated? What's your why, so to speak?
What's my why? So that's kind of interesting because at first my why was to really just solve the problem that I had on a jet.
Yeah.
And so now we're like developing into, that it was like, I want to solve this problem. Then I realized that it could be something, be an actual company. And then I was like, the why for a while was I want to get on Shark Tank. And then after Shark Tank, it was like, now what do we do? So our big vision now is to get a Grypmat in every home. So we're starting to like diversify and see where else the Grypmat can be used, because the original thought was for, aviation, specifically military aviation mechanics, super specific as like F-16s. And I was like, oh, this could be used on other military planes. Then it could be used in like anything in aviation. And then I started selling it in aviation and branded it as like an aviation product or tool. And then it was like, oh, this is more of like an organization.
Right.
So it was that, we're to the level of like who has tools and is trying to stay organized, where now it's like who's trying to stay organized.
Right.
We're hopping around the island a lot here, and I use a Grypmat just to hold my like valuables together.
Yeah.
When I empty my pockets when I come in the house. So
Sure.
There's just different spots that it can be used. And it's kind of interesting. We're kind of coming like full circle, where I got the idea of like a non-slip mat that was on my mom's dashboard to keep her cell phone placed when driving.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're like getting back to, making a product for the dashboard. So you can hold a little more than just a cell phone, but it's kind of interesting of like seeing how the evolution of Grypmat's been coming.
You alluded to a little bit, but walk us through kind of the initial stages, maybe like the first iteration of the Grypmat. Once you had the idea, like how'd you go about getting the first rubber mat printed? And, I guess further to that point, what was kind of like your first positive feedback loop to where you knew this could be a thing and catch on?
Yeah. So at that time, it was kind of interesting. I like had the idea for Grypmat, and I like had all these different ideas that I could solve these problems on that were like issues with maintenance on F-16s. And I was like, I could like come up with a line of different products for, these issues with F-16s. And that was like the initial idea of the product or of the company. And it's funny that you say 3D or like printed. Like I never 3D printed a Grypmat, but at the same time, I was like, I was finding ways to use the school's 3D printer that I was at. So it was like locked in this one room, but I knew everyone who had the key, and I could like, I found a way to like get in the room and like use their 3D printers. So the original idea that I had, like I was like, Grypmat seems kind of hard to do. The company I was trying to start before was like a cell phone case company.
Okay.
That I wanted to 3D print the cell phone case and have like Greek letters in it. So like the fraternities and sororities would have their letters in there and try to sell it to the fraternities and sororities. And I had like a idea for philanthropy that they could like give back to the system that would like create water in Haiti. But that did not work. And then I knew pretty well how to like use the college's equipment, and made a mold for a Grypmat that was form fitted onto an F-16. And that was that. So basically how I did it was, as an engineer, you do what's called capstone, and you make like a new thing. And I told these people I was in the capstone class, which was a lie. And they helped me make the mold. And then afterwards, there's like a capstone trade show that you like present your product, and you're supposed to be like all dressed up there. And I was like wearing flip flops like a bum on the Hawaiian beach. And one of the guys that works there, he was like, he said my name, and once I heard his voice, I was like, oh shit. And he got like, yeah, he was like super pissed at me. Turns out like that was like at the end of the semester. I ended up dropping out of college that semester to go to Milwaukee to start Grypmat. I got accepted this like military business accelerator that was in Milwaukee. And so when that mold did not work, because it was like form fitted Grypmat, it was like form fitted to an F-16. So it wasn't that it didn't work. It helped me articulate what I was trying to make to other mechanics. So after I showed them that, I was on top of an F-16 with an electrical mechanic, and I was like, this is the concept for when you're working on the gun. This Grypmat, I was like, what would you want when you're in the middle of the jet working on, the avionics? And he was like, well, I would just want like a box, like with a lip all the way around it, because I had a lip only on, because it would clip onto the jet, and then like on the part that things would fall off is I had a lip right there. He's like, I just want a lip all the way around it. And I was like, you want it like a box? He's like, yeah, like a box. And I was like, I mean, that's really easy. I could do that. Because the one before, I spent like weeks, like maybe months designing it. Where this one I made in CAD in like 10 minutes. Where I was like, what I would do is I didn't have a laptop. So I would go to the base and I would like draw on a piece of paper. Then I would run to the college and draw it on there. And then I would like print it out, and I'd come back and I'd like try to show them. It was a mess. So once I had the product, had the prototype in hand to like show them, it worked much better. So anyway, came up with the easier version 2, and I made that in my dad's barn just with a table saw with just blocks of wood. I went to Menards and I spent like $30 on wood, and just started cutting it up, and like used a router and started gluing it together. And it was funny because at the time, before I made the first prototype, I got a quote for like, I think $16,000 to make a prototype. and I ended up making it for like $60 after everything was done. So
how entrepreneurial of you to find a cheaper and more efficient way to do it.
yeah, it was a pretty, I was kind of frustrated because I'm like, this is like the most basic mold ever.
Right.
It was like so simple. Sometimes I had a hard time to like explaining it to people because
Yeah.
like because when the Grypmat's upside down, it's just a flat back.
Yeah.
So when you like make a mold and pour it in, it's basically upside down.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then you just like let the backside just like open to to drying.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so got that prototype, and then the second prototype is like about 85 to 90% what you see today.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of our large, it was like really, I made it like really big.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've seen is like when, especially with a hardware product, this might be again for software or really any business model, but like the first one is always like nowhere near the finished product.
Yeah.
But the second one, yeah. The second or third one is like, okay, this is like what you really want. And I'll see that a lot with like different ideas that I have with Grypmat or marketing is like the first idea, like it won't work that well. Yeah. But then like when I come back around, I'm like, oh, I figured it out. Like this is the key that like will make it work.
For sure.
So
do you remember your very first sale, like your first one you sold?
I do. The very first, well, it was actually a pre-order that I made. It was to, it was a previous CEO of Cessna.
Wow.
And it was like a
first order.
Yeah, he ordered like 4 or 5, and I was like, it sounds great. It is a great story. Like he was the very first one. It was at EAA Oshkosh. It's the world's biggest air show. I applied for Aero Innovate, and I got a free booth there. And I was in the innovation tent, and they like did this ribbon cutting thing, and they opened up the innovation hall, and he's like walking through, and he's like, yeah, here's my credit card. I'll buy it. And I'm like, I wasn't even ready at all.
Wow.
And I'm like running out to the card, trying to get like a credit card swiper, and ended up getting the money, which I didn't realize how big of a moment that was when it was happening. There was like, yeah, like news people there and everything. And the part that was like, that made it rough was, at this point, I personally interviewed over 1,000 different mechanics, probably more. And so everyone's like, yeah, this is a great idea. I totally would buy it. So first person who comes to see it, I'm taking pre-orders, he spends like $100 or something. And at that point, I'm like, this is going to be easy. Like I can like, I'm going to sell stuff all day. I didn't sell anything for the next 2 days.
Wow.
And then the show's like 7 days long, and I would sell like 1 or 2 throughout an entire day. And I was like, this is shitty. This is hard. Like, yeah, that was where I was like, oh, I got a big break. I did not get a big break. But yeah, that's how a lot of entrepreneurship is. Like whenever you think you got a big break, don't think you got a big break, because you're about to get punched in the face. But
peaks and valleys, huh?
Yeah, that actually at that trade show, I called one of the last days. I called my friend. I was like, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna like quit this idea. Like I got a different idea. I'm gonna throw in the towel. And that was, if you've ever heard of Eric Thomas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's got a video about Buster Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard that?
I don't think so. I know he's got a lot of speeches out there though. Yeah,
Buster Douglas. He's the guy that was like fighting Mike Tyson, and he got knocked out by Mike Tyson.
Okay.
And he got knocked out, but the thing is, when they were counting down, like 10, 9, 8, the bell rung, so it's another round.
Wow.
So he had more time to rest, and then he ended up knocking out Mike Tyson in that fight. So yeah,
quite literally.
Yeah, so he had a speech about that. I listened to that over and over and over and over again, and I was like crying in my room, like freaking out. I'm like, and at the same time, I would be like writing these grants, and I was supposed to like report to these grant writers, and I talked to them before the show and like after the show. I was taking pre-orders because they're like, you really like, for us to give you any money, you need to be in revenue.
Yeah.
And I'm writing in this grant, like went to EAA, made thousands of dollars. I'm like, I hope we can make 1,000. Like, and don't ask me about the cost of goods. And I also had like no idea how to make it, like
right.
manufacture. I was just like, I think I charged the Cessna guy like 30 or 40 bucks. And that was like, that might've been close to the cost of goods. So I was like, just basically doing it for free.
Wow. Yeah.
But at that point, it was just like, really like, will it sell? Can it sell? So
for sure. That's incredible.
I was like,
so you're one of the first guests, not one of the first guests. You are the first guest who has been on Shark Tank. So I'm eager to talk about that a little bit. But before we transition to that topic, I'm curious, is there one skill set or mindset that you feel like you have as an entrepreneur and a business owner that has led to your success?
Yeah, I would say like persistence is definitely key.
Yeah.
You really have to be there. Like I'm going to be here forever.
Yeah.
So I think like a mindset is definitely not, especially when you're like what I call the garage founder, when you don't have any like network, you don't have any resources, you're just like making stuff up and, learning by error. Do not count your time and your dollars.
Yeah.
Like that you're making, because honestly, if I like, even now today, if I were to like get a normal job out of engineering and just like saved all my money, I probably would have more now.
Wow.
Or made more money myself. Now, I mean, the company's still doing very well. If we were to sell it, then it would be, it would be worth much more.
Right.
And, but it's like, don't count your time.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So let's get to Shark Tank. How was that experience? What was the process as far as like even getting on the show?
I guess I want to ask you, like, what do you what's your perception of the process? What's your perception of like how hard, how easy, like how intense would it be?
Well, since it's a national or international show and probably got a couple 100,000 or millions of viewers, I would think that the demand to get on there is pretty high, and that they have hundreds of applications to sift through a day. So I would think the benchmark's pretty high.
So yeah, each episode will hit between like 3 to 6 million viewers on the launch.
Wow.
I think I may have seen a few. There was like some that were like 1.3 million, and that was like some like specific issues or like airing at the same time as something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have 60,000 applicants. About 120. I think 150 film, and then like 100 will air.
Wow.
So you can film and not air.
Wow. What was your like? Did you air?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like being on TV's airing, so you could like film. The hard part is when you film, you're not supposed to like. It's a big secret. Not supposed to tell anything. You can't like leak anything. Yeah. And so you're constantly wondering, like, I don't even know if I'm going to air. Yeah. And that's like the whole point. The thing is, if you apply and get denied, then you can just reapply. If you film and don't air, you can't like redo it. Like no one's gonna, they're like, you already were on here and you flopped.
Yeah. It's a funny middle ground there.
Right.
So, I guess kind of further in that point, how has that experience helped or hurt your business as far as being on Shark Tank?
Yeah, you get some like, I'll call them crybabies that are on the show, and they're like, I was on Shark Tank and it was like the worst thing that ever happened. People will ask me like, was it a positive or negative experience? And I was like, if you have a startup, can you turn national television, like national exposure, millions of views, and like billionaires looking at your product, can you turn that into a positive situation? If no, you're stupid.
Right. Yep, that's kind of the answer I had in mind, but I'm glad you affirmed it. I'm a PR and marketing guy at heart, so yeah, I share your
Right.
thought there as far as like how would you say no to that if or yeah, look at it negatively at all. I mean, you said it. I mean, 3 to 4 million people watching every episode, so if you have the chance to be aired, like that's huge.
Yeah.
How did you get a chance to interact with any of the guests like Mark Cuban or Mr. Wonderful at all, or was it like very limited within that time window that you're pitching?
Yeah. So when it aired, it was about 12 and a half minutes,
Mhm.
where the filming was like an hour and a half long.
Wow.
So there's a lot of back and forth and interaction. Now, like the one-on-one interaction is like that happens like obviously off camera, but that's kind of like independent to the company and
Mhm.
like the interest of the shark. So um, I got a deal with Lori, Mark, and Richard Branson as a guest. So, there's kind of like, it's almost like a round robin situation where, you know, you versus having like one shark, then like, you're getting attention from one person versus three. So
Yeah.
there's some like pros and cons of having three sharks, because sometimes like one will be doing more than the others, and then they'll get tired of like doing more, then they'll be like, watch the other sharks. Where if you have one shark, then you just like, you're the person I talk to all the time.
For
um,
sure. I know a lot of clips on that show, they tend to stump people or irritate people with certain questions. Do you feel like you got stumped at all, or did you come with your A game ready to pitch?
for me, they like, I didn't know this at the time, but like, you know I mean, they aired me the day before, I think, Veterans Day.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like, they're playing the veteran card really hard, the
Yeah.
way that they like cropped it. So they made me look like a complete badass hero. So you're not gonna like put a veteran and like just shit on them the day before Veterans Day. So, but I didn't know that, but I was like still freaking out.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
so
great. I didn't know. Do you have
yeah.
a link by chance? Could we link to the episode for viewers to watch it if they wanted to?
Yeah, I can drop it to you. The best way to find it is just search Tom Burden Shark Tank on Facebook,
Okay.
specifically Facebook,
Interesting.
because like when you put things on on YouTube,
Yeah.
if like you can make money off that, but if the content's from ABC, then they'll flag it.
Gotcha.
So on Facebook, it's just no one gives a fuck. They
Right.
just
Cool.
anything and everything.
Right. All right. Cool. Well, yeah, we'll link to that for viewers. Um, what was the process like when they were pitching or making an offer to you? Were they all kind of in unison, or did they have some back and forth as far as like who was trying to take the deal before they all joined up?
Yeah, so there's kind of like a little they I had interest from all five,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, the kind of like watching the show and like seeing, I think like, so what I've noticed is that guest sharks are typically more quiet than a normal shark.
Yeah.
They're national television, they might not, there's a lot to it. Like when you are in front of a camera, you got to give more like a lot of energy to
Yeah.
look normal.
Mm-hmm.
So having so what I've noticed is that sometimes I think they talk to the regular sharks about this, of
Mm-hmm.
like giving more energy, because they
Yeah.
know that they're going to have like someone who's like lower energy.
Right.
So Damon John was very like, he was very like pushy, like let's make a deal. He would give the first offer, but um honestly, like if you just like break it down, like Damon John's like the least compatible.
Mm.
He's amazing with clothing. Like
Yeah.
Grypmat's not clothing. So
Right.
if you got a clothing idea, yeah, that would make sense. But this didn't make sense. So I think like when I watch it, I'm like, I think he's kind of like just trying to stir up some attention, some like TV
Mm-hmm.
exposure. And yeah, I would say like I did get some interest from Robert, and I like, Robert is a car guy, so that like kind of makes sense. But the thing is, Robert is a car enthusiast or hobbyist. He's not like known for being a car guy.
Right.
Honestly, in the car world, he's kind of like known for being what's called a gentleman driver, which means you just like pay a bunch of money and you go race.
Cool.
So yeah, you're not like known for driving, you're known
Right.
for having a lot of money and driving. So he he's known for crypto or cybersecurity. I've been talking about cryptocurrency today. But anyway, he's known for cybersecurity. So if you have a cybersecurity product, like he's the man, but like not really in this case. So yeah, it turned down Damon and Robert and ended up going with a combo deal of Richard and Lori and Mark. So
Very cool. Well, yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes for anyone who's curious to watch Tom pitch to the Sharks. What advice would you have for any other entrepreneurs who may be listening to this show or this episode about getting on Shark Tank? Is it, any advice as far as like pitch? Is that a written submission? Is it a video? What's that like?
Yeah, so there's two ways to submit, online or doing like a casting call where you just stand in line forever and then pitch to somebody. I did online.
Yeah.
I would say two biggest things. One, if you look up my Kickstarter video, that they found me through Kickstarter and they look for entrepreneurs through Kickstarter.
Interesting.
So that can be helpful. And then the other thing is it's really about your story. So if you do an online submission or like any type of application, it's about your story. I didn't realize it at the time, but the story of me and Grypmat is really like the story of the American dream.
Yeah.
Like you make something in a basement and then it's, goes global. So the concept of having like the veteran thing on top of that is just like super, like super America. Yeah. So it's like, it's like, what's your story? Like, what's your story? If you're like, well, I don't want to play the veteran card. I don't give a fuck. Like I'll play every single card I've got to get on the show. And that's what they're going to want because, and also to be successful in the show is you're like really appeasing like two masters, if you will. Like you gotta be entertaining. And then you got to have a good company. If you're entertaining and don't have a good company, they're going to make you look like shit. That's how you get on the show and the Sharks like make fun of you and make you look like an idiot. Yeah. If you're not entertaining and have a good company, that's how you never get seen on the show. Yeah. So, that's just, that's kind of the things I look for. So have a good story, Kickstarter, and
Good advice. Yeah, I appreciate that. Getting towards the end here as we wrap up, besides Shark Tank itself, are there any books, resources, people you look to for inspiration or feel have made an impact on your life or your business?
Yeah. So one that I said, Eric Thomas, he's like an amazing motivational speaker. Yeah. And then the book that is like the reason why I came to Hawaii, it's called Illusion of Money. So it talks about how like you chasing money is preventing you from like money coming to you. So what happened was at the end of each chapter, it'll have a to do. And then the last chapter, it said, do something that you've always wanted to do for 24 hours. And this is like on a Thursday and I had like a really packed weekend. And I'm like, I don't have time to do that. And then COVID hit and wiped everything out. It was like literally the first weekend of COVID. And I saw a friend, she posted on Instagram that she was in Hawaii. And I was at the last dinner with my family. It was like, after 9 o'clock, after 9 o'clock tonight, all restaurants are closed. And that was just like mind blowing. We're like, what? I don't even know what that means. What do you mean they're closed? It's like illegal to open? Like what? Yeah. So at that dinner, I was like, I think I'm going to go to Hawaii. Yeah. And then I texted everyone on the Grypmat team. I was like, who wants to go to Hawaii? And two people said no right away. And I was like, I'm not going to let them stop me from going to Hawaii. And then our videographer, I was like, hey, are you in or are you out? And he's like, I'm in. And so I called him. We got off the phone at like 1 a.m. and then we were leaving for the airport at like 7 a.m. And then that was March 12th.
Oh my gosh.
It's we're coming up on a year now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would highly recommend reading that book. It changed my life. It does have some entrepreneurial stuff in there, but yeah,
Yeah,
when you
sounds
get to
like,
the last chapter, make it serious.
for sure. Yeah, it sounds like a great read. I hadn't heard of that one before, so I'll have to check it out. So besides the book recommendations and links to your website and the show Shark Tank episode that you're on, where can people best get a hold of you if they want business or personal advice?
Best way is through Instagram.
Okay.
So follow me on Instagram, send me a direct message, and yeah, we could do a Instagram live.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Tom, thanks so much for your time and insights. Good luck to you and Grypmat and your continued growth. And thanks for joining us on the Gen Y Leaders podcast.
Yep. Thank you, sir. I'll see you.
All right. Bye-bye. That wraps up today's episode. We hope to have brought you some valuable key takeaways. Most importantly, whatever you learned, take action on it. Apply it to your life. Apply it to your career. Motivation and inspiration only come as a result of taking that first step. So if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on whichever platform you found the show. You can also follow us on all the major social media platforms or contact us directly at genwhyleaders@gmail.com. That's GENWHY leaders@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Eric Huey, and thanks for listening to the Gen Y Leaders podcast.